It's all right.
Yeah, we live. We're only 2 minutes late, which is
Progress
okay.
for us. That's really good.
Yeah. Apparently, I don't even know how to work my own tooling, so there's that. Um, but yeah, we're using a new tool called Melon app. Um, it's basically a entirely web based, so it helps make things easier when you know how to use it. Enjoy correctly. But yeah, well, welcome. It's been a while. We did the last one, I think, towards the end of last year.
Yeah, November, I
Um,
think.
yeah. So it's been some time. I've certainly not uh been active in terms of streaming and that. I think most people are just exhausted, really.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's been a long and hard slog. I think towards the end of the year, and people are recovering still. I certainly am. But you have been extremely busy, have you not?
Yes, very busy, incredibly busy. Too busy, actually, I think, in many ways.
Yeah, you want to go into details of what you've been up to? You've been on some adventures.
Well, yeah, since we last spoke, I went to Japan. I was in Japan for a couple months, which was awesome. Loved it. Didn't want to come back. Tried to claim asylum, but apparently the text message that you faked pretending to be Rishi Sunak was not believable, so they didn't think I was under
Oh,
threat to my life.
oh,
So that
sorry
was,
about that.
yeah, it was an OPSEC failure. It's fine, it happens. Um, and then, yeah, it's just been really, work's just been insanely busy. And I actually did, I think, 8 or 9 cities in 1 week in the UK the other week, which on paper, you're like, yeah, this is totally doable. It was totally doable for Lisa in her 20s. It's not totally doable for Lisa now. I have established this. So, yeah.
Yeah, and you were recently in Poland, weren't you?
Yes,
Just last
yes,
week.
yeah. Went and did some climbing, took a little break in between clients, and decided to head to the mountains. So, I'm trying to do this thing this year where, because I travel so much with work, and what I was doing was basically just going into a hotel, doing the work for the client, and then flying back out again. And now I'm sort of thinking, well, I'm going to take an extra day or two and see the place I actually go to because everyone was always saying, "Oh, you've been to Denmark and you've been here and you've been there. What's that like?" And I'm like, I have no idea what it's like. I've seen a Hilton. That's what I can tell you. So I'm trying to see places that I visit for work now.
Well, that sounds, yeah, it sounds awesome. Certainly far more exciting than me. I've been to Cambridge. Yay.
Cambridge, I went to Cambridge as well. It's a nice place, Cambridge, I tell you that.
Um, yeah, I didn't, I think, yeah, we went into the city for a little bit team event, bowling.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
yeah, it started off well, didn't end up well. But like, yeah, strike, and then miss. Yeah, so, but that was fun. Yeah, it's good. But yeah, so I think we have a few items on our agenda today.
We
Um,
do. And actually, this, unlike last time where we just came up with our own topics, I think most of the community came up with these topics. So,
yeah,
yeah, it's on them
um,
if it's bad, not us.
yeah, exactly. So which one are we going to start on? Start at the top, I guess.
Yeah, I reckon.
All right, so all about breaches. Apologies, I'm trying to sort out my lighting and it's annoying because the color just keeps on going full warm and I can't change it, which is weird. Anyway, so breaches. The Royal Mail hack. Um, that was quite a big one.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know if you want to cover what it was, what it involved.
So I think actually what was really fascinating is actually the attack itself, I don't think was really that innovative or interesting, particularly in comparison to a lot of attacks we've seen. What I do think was quite interesting was how much the ransomware group deviated from their standard playbook. Because time and time again, we've seen this playbook be used by these ransomware groups And they kind of stick to script, and it works really well, and it works very effectively for getting ransom payments and so on and so forth. But it seems to me that in the Royal Mail attack, either some really fundamental mistakes were made, or they were under an awful lot of pressure to get things done quickly because maybe they were thinking that the heat was onto them or something, or they just made some really fundamental mistakes due to, some people have argued that perhaps they've got some sort of dissent in their ranks and they're having some sort of organizational issue. But it was just really strange because there are certain things that typically you see that happen. For example, when you're negotiating with a victim who you've targeted, you usually see the ransomware groups keep it kind of quiet and keep the conversation kind of quiet between the victim and them, because obviously the more public you make it, the less likely someone's going to pay because you're kind of broadcasting it. Yet we saw them do the complete opposite. Then they were sort of like, we were going to dump the data and we're going to dump it at this time. And that time came and went. And then another hour and another hour and another hour, and nothing happened. Days actually, I think, passed before anything got dumped. And then they posted the advert, which you might remember, which was like this really strange advert where they'd sort of mocked up like a job ad, really, saying looking for a new ransom negotiator for Royal Mail, and posted it on their blog. I mean, you got to hand it to them; they've got a sense of humor. But yeah, it was really out of character, in my opinion. I'm not sure whether they assumed Royal Mail had money that they didn't have. I'm not sure whether they thought Royal Mail, with the royal element to it, had tons of money. I mean, if you just did a little bit of Googling, you'd probably establish that was probably not the case. So I don't know. It was very odd, very curious, a little bit disconcerting, I would say, that they deviated so dramatically from how they usually played things. But yet again, the cybersecurity community had quite a big role to play in this, in my opinion. When they posted the thing with the timer and they said the Royal Mail data was going to be dumped in an hour, I think it was, or something like that, the cybersecurity community on Twitter and everywhere, actually, like, basically promoted the hell out of that for them. Like, this is the strangest thing. And you're looking at it and everyone's like, oh, countdown, only 55 minutes left. And it's like, what are you doing?
Yeah, marketing.
Yeah, it's a brilliant marketing thing. And everyone was sort of talking about it. And if I was Royal Mail, I'd be thinking, great, guys, thanks for that. Cheers for making sure that everybody on the planet knew.
Yeah, that is interesting. I gotta admit, I don't know much about it. I just know it impacted. It didn't seem to impact the domestic side of things, but it was more the international side.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's definitely not good. Ransomware is, I think, here to stay. I'll be curious to see where ransomware goes in the next few months. I was hoping we weren't going to touch on the subject, but we may. With the volatility of cryptocurrency at the moment.
Boom! He went there.
Damn
he
it.
desperately tried to avoid it because he knows that he'll set the Italian woman off.
But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see, because I think it's picked up a little bit, but there was a point where let's just say one exchange and some character or CEO with an exchange was in a bit of hot water and still in hot water.
Did that CEO have really curly hair and was aged about 28?
Something like that. May or may not have been residing in the was it Barbados or Bahamas? And now may or may not be reprimanded and be given a dumb phone because interacting with witnesses on their case.
Yes, I feel desperately sorry. I think we almost need a moment's silence to recognize the struggle that SBF's lawyers have had. Because can you imagine, that's the worst job on the planet right now. And like that guy, I mean, he shouts his mouth off all the time. As a lawyer, you would just be like, oh my God, what am I going to do now? So a moment's silence for them, I think. Thoughts and prayers.
Don't do this. Off he goes and does it.
Yeah.
It's interesting. But anyway, circling back, it's going to be curious to see how that impacts ransomware, because I mean, obviously, ransomware largely relies on cryptocurrency, right?
Yeah, and I think there was a lot of reports as well that were kind of got misunderstood by the cybersecurity community. Shocker, I know. We don't tend to do that. It's not like us to just overreact. But people were saying like, okay, Bitcoin payments are down, which was true. Bitcoin payments were down. But what had happened was there'd been a very marked shift across to Monero, which is a privacy coin. There's a blog on my website, if you don't know what Monero is, that goes into it in more detail, that I'm going to go into it here. But essentially, they'd moved across into that. And that was a direct reaction, I think, to Colonial Pipeline, where essentially they had, I think they had a bit of fear put into them when the FBI managed to recover not all of the cryptocurrency that was taken, that was paid by Colonial Pipeline, but they recovered a small percentage of it. And I think the attackers suddenly thought, oh, this is a problem. Like, they actually have the ability now to potentially trace some of this. So we saw Bitcoin payments go down, not in my opinion, because we massively saw a large number of ransomware attacks go down, but because they were just shifting to a different cryptocurrency.
Awesome. I am. There's a chat. I didn't even see the chat thing on the webpage. That's great. Well. Technology. We awesome at it, right? So there's some. I
don't know if I want to read the chat, to be honest. That's always a bit worrying.
Okay, so there's this one. Okay, serious question. Take on the blacklisting of mixers, tumblers by countries like the US, and I have an influence on ransomware since they're trying to limit routes of laundering. I have no idea because I have little to no knowledge of cryptocurrency. Maybe you understand that, Lisa?
Where is the question? I'm trying to find it on the thing. Oh, here we go. Okay, yeah. Serious question on blacklisting mixes. So basically, mixing services can be one of two things. We'll start with Bitcoin. So Bitcoin, for example, it's the privacy is delivered on the Bitcoin blockchain at app level, not natively. So on Monero, it's delivered natively. So if you go onto my website, red-goat.com, there's an article on Monero and how it works. So I won't go into that. So they have these services, and they can either be run essentially like an app or a company that's kind of running the service almost, I guess, manually, or they can be a smart contract that does it automatically. So those are the two types that you've seen. We have seen the US, the SEC did sanction Tornado Cash, which was a smart contract mixing service sitting on the Bitcoin blockchain that they did sanction. The problem is a smart contract is just code that will run in perpetuity forever. So the effectiveness of a sanction is, I would argue, basically just paying lip service to the fact that you've done something. And essentially, it's very, very difficult to do. The mixing service function is just one way of washing money through the cryptocurrency landscape. It's not the only way of doing it. It's not even necessarily the best way of doing it on Bitcoin, because a mixing service is a custodial service. So if I was a ransomware attacker and Sean's paid me his ransom and I've got it and I need to clean it, if I run it through a mixing service, I have to actually hand over custody of that Bitcoin to another criminal enterprise to clean that, which opens me up to a lot of risk as well as another criminal, because not so much honor amongst thieves, I suppose. So it's not necessarily the best way to even do it, which is why we've seen this shift across to Monero, because privacy is native in that. And the way it works is, it's pretty genius, actually. Go and read the blog because it's very complicated. But I personally think Monero is an absolute work of art, to be honest. It's genius. It doesn't help us massively at our side, but you can't deny that the way they've set it up is absolutely brilliant. Cool. I hope that kind of answers your question to some degree.
So I can't comment on any of that because I have zero knowledge. So there's another question. Do you know whether ransomware groups have a hierarchy, and if so, would someone have overall control of the actions and comms strategy?
So I'm taking this as I'm just seeing someone says lies. There's so much honor amongst thieves. It leads to the best dumps. Oh, that got me. That was good. So within a ransomware group, as opposed to sort of between ransomware groups who are obviously running in competition to each other, there is hierarchy. We saw from the Conti leaks, there was a very structured hierarchical structure within the organization. So we know that likely for the large ransomware groups, this would be what happened, and strategies and whatever. We've seen also with Vice Society, who are another ransomware group, that they have made a strategic decision to only attack higher education and education sector organizations. So they definitely have like areas of expertise, should we say, both at industry level and sort of within geographical levels as well.
Something else interesting to note that I saw, they very much becoming like proper businesses. So there's like interviews, you get paid time off, you get sick leave, all of that kind of stuff. It's quite interesting.
Yeah, because the Conti leaks, they actually had discussions in the messages about repetitive strain injuries. Like carpal tunnel and how to avoid this. And they had offices and they were talking about like essentially occupational health discussions about, about the safety and security and the health of their employees, if you can call them that. I don't know. But yeah.
It's pretty interesting. And some of the money that you can earn, I think developers are high in demand, and it's about $5,000 a month or something like that.
And I've got a question for you then. So these tech layoffs that we're seeing across the board from Google, Facebook, Amazon, all of these big tech companies, we're seeing like huge layoffs, absolutely huge numbers. Do you think there is a risk, given the economic downturn generally around the world, that some of these individuals may be enticed, perhaps you can't blame them, I don't know, to go across into these groups for the money that potentially they need to put food on the table and heat their house, etc.?
Potentially. I think, again, demographics and geographics and all that probably going to come into play. Some of these people who have been laid off, they aren't exactly. I'm trying to think of wording this right. It's obviously terrible they've been laid off. For many of them, there will probably be the financial stress and strain, but it's not like they've been in a position where financially it's very, very, very difficult. Generally, tech industry people are paid fairly well. So that might have some bearing with it versus, I don't know, some other industry where you're probably looking at minimum wage and all that kind of stuff. So maybe that has some bearing. Also, some of these tech companies, their redundancies are fairly good. So that can help provide a buffer. But certainly, I think in some cases, there may be that kind of draw, especially if those are finding it difficult after a few weeks or months. And again, it's down to personal morals and that, like how far and how much are you willing to go? Like what risk are you willing to take? And morally, is it something that you would live by and that kind of stuff? So it's going to be interesting. I did see a thing in, I think it was yesterday or today, that apparently a lot of the people who have been laid off are now actually starting up their own businesses. And that's probably part and parcel with a lot of the redundancy payoffs that give you a fairly, often at times, especially if you've been working there for a while, a sizable chunk of money that can allow you to go off and do things like that.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting. Yeah.
I'm just reading Neil's comment that says, "How long until ransomware groups get ISO certified?"
Oh my god!
Can you imagine the ransom note that says, "Don't worry, we comply with the NIST guidelines. we've got this 27,001 or whatever, like you can trust.
Yeah. But yeah, the tech layoffs are sucks. I mean, SecureWorks, where I used to work, loads of people that I used to work with, they were impacted.
Yeah.
Many of some companies, the way they're handling it is just absolutely atrocious, where they're
Yeah.
not giving any notice. You just one day find out you don't have a job. I think I'm pretty sure that's not legal in the UK. You have to have consultation and all that in the UK, but certainly in the US, that's unfortunately happening. Yeah, it sucks. It really sucks to see. So I really hope people manage to find something else.
Yeah, it's very difficult, and I think it does put people at risk. I mean, you saw in the Conti leaks that some of the people who had applied to join Conti were people who had worked very much on our side of the fence. They weren't, lifelong criminals. They were people who had worked as, security engineers or in SOCs or whatever, and had that knowledge, who had decided to move across. And so I think there is, it is difficult because some people may well be in a very, very difficult situation. And it would definitely not surprise me if these ransomware groups fully recognized what was going on and the opportunity that could maybe afford them.
Yeah, definitely. I guess time will tell.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So Sean and I are starting our own ransomware group. If anyone who's joined on this call would like to join.
We can pay you in... I don't know.
Every single podcast we do, there's another scam.
Yep. Talking of which, the next breach, our favorite one, LastPass. That I like. I don't know about your opinions on that, but that certainly was not handled well at all.
No. And weren't they declared it? I was reading this earlier. They declared it on, I think it was like the initial intrusion ended like 12th of August or something. It was like somewhere around that time. And then basically, I think over 10 days passed and they were still in the network. And I think LastPass said something like they'd done some sort of new series of reconnaissance activities. And it's like, no. This isn't just something we can say, oh, they had 10 days extra of reconnaissance. That's not really cool, like, given the business model that you have. So no, I don't think it was very well handled. And I also feel that LastPass, it was like bombshell after bombshell after bombshell. And it was like, you knew this before and it was hidden and then dropped as like, almost like, oh, new week, new reveal kind of thing.
You mean like dropping the fact that your vaults were leaked 2 days before Christmas?
Yeah, exactly that.
Yeah, it like, so I had a run-in with, let's just say, an employee at LastPass, probably a higher up employee, and when they initially released the news, there was a coincidence. Whether it was intentional or not, I don't know. I can't say. I don't think it was, but it still raises a question. So they released the news around the time, or pretty much the same day that the Uber leaks got announced. So people are like, oh, is this coincidental or what? And like, yeah, it does raise a question. And I certainly wasn't going on about like this, they did it. You're just asking the question, right?
Yeah.
This employee turned around going on about, we should stop with conspiracy theories and all this. The best kick about it is, this is how you do IR. So I felt like going back to them and going, yeah, about that IR. How did that go? But that's the point. Like, that really got my backup, because the initial one, LastPass didn't initially release the information freely. It was only after Bleeping Computer tried to reach out to them, and actually eventually published the story that LastPass eventually announced anything. And it's a pain because we used LastPass at my company, and it just created a bunch of extra work and a bunch of extra stress.
Yeah.
We didn't do anything wrong. Um, and then you have this company willingly taking your money. The product itself is not the best, in my opinion. It's falling behind. It used to be really like up there and latest and that, but it's kind of falling behind if you especially look at previous or other competitors out there, and what you're paying and what you get. So it kind of just feels in a way like a bit of a cash cow, and they just trying to get money out of it, and then the breach happens and all that.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to see where it goes. Yeah,
I think it also has another impact, which in some ways is worse, in that we have fought a valiant fight to tell people to use password managers. And the line that was always proliferated by cybersecurity people when people said, oh, yeah, but isn't there a risk that all my passwords are in one place? We go, no, this is their business. They'll be fine. They take security seriously. This is their whole business model. They will be. And then this happens. And not only does this happen, which I suppose in some ways you could argue was an inevitability because they are kind of like, you know, beacons out there to get. However, the way it was handled was so poor that I sort of feel like it kind of got in front of people, normies, as Dan Card would call them. And now people are saying, oh, yeah, but wasn't one of those password managers breached? I'm not sure I want to use one, which doesn't make it better. It makes it worse for everything.
I can flip that on its head.
Okay, do it.
So we've had thousands of vaults. I don't know how many vaults out there. Has there been any widespread usage of that in terms of compromising accounts? To date, we've yet to see any significant fallout from this. And that is worth questionable going on. So those who don't know, LastPass didn't encrypt the URLs that were associated with entries. Some other information wasn't encrypted. They weren't doing sufficient rounds of hashing. So if you're one of the original customers, it was still like the default of like 5,000 rounds or something like that. Later ones, I think about 100,100. I don't know where the 100 comes in. It seems like an odd number to get. But even with all of that in place, it still didn't result in like a mass widespread leakage of passwords. Now, I will be curious to see if any passwords were actually like really leaked from there. I imagine so, with some really weak master passwords, but that's one way I flip it. And the other thing is with people going, oh, password managers, you must use an offline password manager. Well, KeyPass recently had a vulnerability, and that vulnerability allowed, yes, someone with local access, yes, but it still didn't require you to log in, and you could export all the passwords from KeyPass. So all of them have risks, and this is why you need to do your homework, and evaluate the different password managers, hold them to account, shout if you don't see something that you don't like, and look at the different models. This is why I constantly vouch for 1Password. If you look at the actual model, so the way 1Password works is you have a master password and a secret key. You need to know both in order to access the vault. Yeah. And the secret key is a 128-bit generated client side. So you're not going to have a scenario of someone having a really weak password and then being able to compromise it. Even if they had a weak password, you need to break this 128-bit key, which is nigh on impossible. And then you throw MFA on top of it, and good luck.
Yeah, well, that's the key thing, I think, isn't it? That this is why passwords really are a nightmare overall. And we were talking the other day, I mean, about MFA, and the oddity is, in our little bubble, it's like a no-brainer. Everyone's got MFA on everything, right? Like the Twitter announcement that they were moving SMS to FA, I was like, well, that doesn't matter. I don't use SMS to FA. It doesn't impact me. And then it was released how many people on Twitter of the accounts in total used MFA, and it was 2%. So 2% of every single Twitter account has any form of 2FA on it, SMS or app-based. And you think, my God, that's such an easy platform to implement 2FA on. It's so easy. It's literally 3 clicks, right? And you've got 2% uptake.
Yep.
I mean, if that's then representative across all other personal accounts, MFA is basically not being used.
It isn't. So that kind of draws us to the Twitter discussion where there's this discussion and there's of this argument like, yeah, SMS if MFA is better than no MFA. I'm like, yeah, I could also argue Windows XP is better than no OS. SSL v3 is better than no encryption. Like, we got to move away from this perception like, okay, well, a legacy system is there, it's better than nothing, or we always did in the past, kind of thing. And yes,
but it is nothing. There is nothing because there's 2%. So it's not even the argument that, oh, well, they're all using SMS 2FA and that's better than nothing. No, they're not. So it's not even an argument.
I think where you start figuring out and seeing why is when you start interacting with people outside of security. And this is one of the problems with many people in security. They don't interact outside of security. I mean, a lot of people in the industry work for security teams and companies, and they're often probably their daily interaction is with other security teams at other organizations or internally or whatever. Do they interact with, say, for instance, the development teams? Do they interact with their finance teams, HR, all of that? And you'll quickly see that most people, their view of security is different to us. Like, we're passionate about it, we live and breathe it, all of that. For them, it's just another thing. If they do it, they do it. If they don't, well, it's no egg off the back. Things like, I have nothing to lose is a real thing to them, because that's exactly what they're going to think. And they don't actually realize what it could actually mean.
Yeah.
And that's kind of why we're going up against this. There's also the change part. Like, I've literally bought a YubiKey, biometric YubiKey. Like, I went out of my way, paid the money and bought it. I've not set it up. Why? Because I'll just do it tomorrow. I'll do it tomorrow. And that's also, I think, one factor when you're thinking about an MFA. It's like, yeah, I'll get around to it. I'll do it next week. And then before you know it, you've, like, a year later still haven't implemented it.
Yeah.
So,
and I sort of disagree on some level. I disagree that I do think that SMS is better than nothing. If what we're saying is it's either SMS or nothing, then 100% SMS is better. The problem is, one, that hasn't got a large uptake. So it's not the case that everyone's using SMS 2FA. You're going to take it from them and now they're going to go to nothing because the data doesn't support that. The second thing is, actually, I think that the more I've sort of paid attention to it, I actually think that the app-based stuff isn't that difficult to set up, but there's no driver to do it, right? And I think in some respects, and I had a conversation with an e-commerce company a while back, and they were talking about it. And I said, look, why don't you have it enforced that in order to set up your account and pay for things, that they have to have this set up? I mean, it's really simple. It's literally scanning a QR code. People scan QR codes continuously. I mean, Rishi Sunak posted a QR code the other day and everyone was having all sorts of fun with it. So we're more than capable of scanning a QR code, right? And they said to me that the reason they didn't want to do that was because the more steps they put in place, for someone to have to pass essentially before they could check out, the more likely that person wasn't going to check out and they were going to go and buy it somewhere else. And so it was a business decision to not offer it as an option because it would take too long, or the text message wouldn't arrive and someone would get bored and then they'd go buy it from a competitor. So I actually think it's more complicated than just blaming the users and saying, well, they can't figure it out or they can't do this. I actually think that a lot of the sites are a bit scared to push it their direction in a way.
There are, so this is where you can create things like incentives. A few gaming companies, I forgot the last one that did it. They gave away like free skins and that if you enabled MFA on your account.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. So things like that can really help. It's a choice. I'm always a fan of giving people a choice. That's how I think you solve this. Like, make people realize, like, hey, you don't have to put an MFA on. We're not going to enforce you to do it. But guess what? If something goes wrong, that's on you. We encourage it, and here's some nice goodies if you do it. Things like that. It's awareness. It's making people knowledgeable that this is why we do it, and it's really important. And here's the steps. Make it as easy as possible. And things are getting really, really, really easy in terms of MFA. You've got iOS now that has the MFA. Like, literally, your device will become your MFA. I saw it the other day where my browser, in terms of Brave, it's like, use your device as MFA. So you just click a pop-up in your browser. That's all it is. Like, that is how simple it is to implement MFA. You basically go into account settings, add a hardware key, pops up in your browser, you go okay, and done.
Yeah. And I think, so I read this really interesting article about behavior change, and it was in the context of environmental concerns and how people change their behavior to be more environmentally friendly. So it was out of the context of cybersecurity, but it does relate to it. And they were talking about how there's two elements that you need in order to see significant and lasting behavior change. And that was, one, fear. You do actually need fear of consequences. You need fear that you're going to be hacked, or you're going to lose money, or your house is going to be broken into, because that's the motivator to get up and do something. And then the second element that's also completely necessary, you can't have one without the other, is this feeling of self-efficacy, which is this feeling that, okay, this is the risk, I'm afraid of it, but this is what I can do to negate the risk completely or almost completely. And if you combine those two things, you get behavior change. And I was thinking about this, and one of the things when the Twitter announcement came out that they were going to remove SMS 2FA, a lot of the accounts defaulted to the fear element, and they really went big on fear. Everyone's going to be hacked, everyone's account's going to be compromised. But what they didn't do is pair that with this self-efficacy element. And a couple of people did, and they were like, this is how you do it. First step, download Authy, for example. Second step, do this, do this. And all of a sudden what you've done is gone, here's the fear, here's the risk, and then this is what you do about it. You've got the tools, now you can go and handle it.
Yeah, I totally agree. So making it absolutely clear, the way Twitter handled the rollout of that or change of that was pretty rubbish.
Predictably rubbish.
Yeah. They should have indicated why. Personally, I think it was the right move to do, both from a business point of view as well as from a security point of view. But they didn't provide context like why, and from a security point of view, how it helps them, and details or help on how to set it up in that.
Yeah.
So that was a failure on Twitter. But at the same time, as you mentioned, the industry didn't help. So if we had a look, I think it was, the exact figure was like 2.6% had MFA enabled. Of that, 74% had SMS MFA enabled. So that's not just that's all they had. They could have, that number, just how many people had it enabled. So with Twitter, you can have multiple forms of MFA enabled. So you're talking a very, very, very small percentage of Twitter. My math is probably rubbish, but at most, what, 2% of entire Twitter base, which is a few 100,000 people. And they may or may not have had other forms of
And some of those accounts may
MFA.
not be active anymore.
Exactly.
There's a lot of
So
different things that could have played into that.
the fear rating of like, oh, everyone's going to get hacked because of this was not warranted, and it didn't help the situation. As you said, like we should have sat down and said, like, look, it's not ideal, but here's what you can do to help yourself.
Yeah.
And that would have come across a lot better. Instead, we again get the boy who cried wolf type thing, and off we go on a whole thing because Twitter made a change and didn't do it right, but we didn't really do anything to help with that. And how many people were aware, like, why do you need MFA? What does it matter? Why are people saying app-based MFA is better than SMS and so on and so forth? So, yeah.
And I agree
also,
that Twitter didn't handle it well, and we all want to hate on Twitter if we can. I get that. It's been for a difficult 6 months plus. We all get that. We're all on the same boat with that. The problem is, though, when this happened, the first few things I actually read about it, which was on Twitter from security people, was Twitter are removing MFA unless you pay for it. That was the message. And then it wasn't until I started looking into it that I was like, well, no, that's not quite right. They're removing SMS 2FA and they're giving us whatever it was, a month notice. Not ideal. As you said, they didn't handle it well at all. Do I agree with it? No. However, why we didn't respond with a breakdown of videos or instructions that we could have put out and pushed to help people actually deal with this, as opposed to just going, oh my God, everything's just awful. It was frustrating to watch from my perspective.
Yeah. And unfortunately, I think we're going to see more of that happen. I don't think just with Twitter. I think we'll see it with other organizations as well, but it is what it is. And so those who don't, I think people also lose context of things. So people always assume SMS is free. It's not. It costs businesses money. In Twitter's case, it was being abused, so it cost them significant amount of money. And this is why they're going through a lot of cost-cutting measures, because they were bleeding millions. So from a business point of view, they've had to cut right back. Whether they did it the right way or not, that's debatable. But at the end of the day, the business, they're not a charity, so they're going to have to make money. And yeah, that is, if you're in any business, and I've been in loads of businesses, things like that are things that a business will look to. Okay, we can win money here, or cut costs here, and things like the amount that we're spending on SMS, especially when you consider your user base like 2.6%. That's an easy one from a business perspective. You're going to cut that right back. So that's why I say from a business point of view, it makes sense. And then from a security point of view, it does, if messaged right and dealt with correctly, it can help security.
Yeah. And I think, we've seen Google has talked about doing this for Gmail, removing any sort of SMS thing. And again, I think it has the potential to be really positive if handled well, if platforms forced people into it. Whether that's what will happen or not, I don't know. But one thing's for sure, when you look at the attacks that are happening, there are still way too many attacks that almost certainly could have been stopped if there was some sort of MFA on the account.
Yep. Or not use the top 10 passwords that have hardly changed for the last how many years.
I know.
And I think so we might joke about that, but that's the exact problem why people don't implement MFA. Many of them know these passwords are bad, but they'll still continue to not only use those bad passwords, but the same passwords across multiple devices. And it's just down to human nature. So until we change that, we're probably going to be having this conversation in 10 years' time.
Yeah. And I think it's like, so I posted the other day, I saw on Instagram, someone I follow, they posted that they were in an Airbnb and they were trying to log into the Airbnb TV, smart TV, into the Netflix, into the YouTube, using their login creds for whatever, right? And my initial reaction was, oh, I'm not sure I would log into a smart TV in an Airbnb with my Gmail login to get into. I'm not sure I would do that. However drunk I was, I don't think I would do that. And it kind of made me cringe. And then I started thinking about it and I thought, well, it's probably not tragically bad from a security perspective. You can force a log out from another device on all these things. So it's not like completely irreparable if you do it and then go, oh my gosh. But what I think it does signify is people don't see the value of their login credentials, because you wouldn't put your bank details into something without being sure what you're putting in your bank details. We recognize that bank details have value, but yet we'll be sitting in an Airbnb and we're quite happy in this laissez-faire attitude to kind of be like, yeah, logging in. And when I posted it on Twitter, so many people came back and said, I've been to hotels, I've been to Airbnbs, and people are still logged into Amazon, or they're still logged into Netflix or whatever. And I think that's just indicative of the fact that normal people don't see that as something that's hugely valuable, but yet in security we do, but we can't understand why they don't.
Yeah, it's education, awareness, and also, oh, they're gonna get access to my Gmail. So what? What they're gonna gain from that? And not
All of the
realize,
things. That's what they'll
and
get.
not realize, like, yeah, you could go do a password reset on this and this and this and this.
It's probably the most valuable account you could possibly have, I think.
Yeah. I think in my case, I'm trying to make it my least valuable account, but it's still, yeah, very, very valuable.
Someone just said they had it in airport taxis where someone's still logged in. What logged into what at the airport taxi? What they logged into?
Airport taxi. Okay, that's an interesting taxi. I want a taxi like that. That sounds cool.
Yeah, just enter your Gmail deets and it's fine.
So the last topic that we have is staying balanced in life and mindset. This was something that you brought up, Lisa.
Yeah, which is ironic, really, because I'm not exactly the most balanced person you'll ever meet in your entire life. This was something that someone sent to me in the DMs, and they was on Twitter when I asked what people wanted us to talk about, and they said, "How do you stay balanced in our industry where everything's dialed up to 10?" And this is both in terms of like the work-life balance, like making sure you're not sort of risking burnout, but also I think getting whipped up into the online social media hysteria over little things like a small Apple update, for instance, and just escalating that stress continuously, because I sometimes find it's continuous, and it's not just Twitter. We're picking on Twitter because that's the platform I spend most of my time on, but LinkedIn's the same, Mastodon's the same. All of these platforms are the same. I mean, Instagram is a bit different because it's mainly just people hiking in thongs and pretending they're doing hiking. But aside from Instagram, the others are all basically hysteria. So they were basically saying, you know, what are some good tips? Can we talk about any tips, or can the people who've kind of come along to listen, have you got any good tips about how we can stay balanced and happy and not just operate at this kind of dialed up crazy level?
Yeah, it's something I've struggled with. So I think one of the problems that we have in our industry, it's both a blessing and a curse. Like, many of us are so passionate about it that we live and breathe it. Like, it's not only is it our job, it's our hobby, it's something that we do all the time, and that can take its toll. So trying to find a way out. So for instance, I used to be in photography quite a bit, and then life got hold of me and kids and that, and I just lost interest. And I've only recently started picking that up. And the nice thing I found about that is it kind of forces me to get outside and get away from computers and that, and not only that, take your mind away somewhere else. Um, But at the same time, and I think this is really, really, really important because I gave a talk at Security on Friday last week, and one of the things I said is like, yes, pick a hobby. If it is security and it is something that you enjoy doing and helps you relax and gets you away, then why shouldn't you be doing it? Like,
Mhm.
you don't have to just have a hobby that's away from a computer. As lo- I think the really important thing is it gets you away from your 9 to 5 job or whatever, and it gets you in a space that you're happy and you're not stressed, and you generally in a way relax a bit.
Yeah.
And if that's doing hack the box challenges, then awesome.
Yeah, I agree. And I actually think one of the main things is turning off social media, getting off social media and all social media. And this is something that's really interesting. So I intermittently take breaks where I just log off and I just don't log in for several days. And it's mainly so that I can still feel that I control Lisa, and Twitter or Instagram does not control Lisa. So I log off and I just have a couple of days complete break, and it makes me feel really great about myself. And then I go back and I feel I've got a bit of control over my life. I've seen loads of people, some of whom are really good friends of mine, who have said, right, I'm logging off. I'm logging off Twitter. I'm logging off Twitter. I'm logging off all social media. And then 2 hours later, they're like, I'm back. It's like, it was 2 hours break. That's not a break. And I think that the thing is, you get sucked into it and you don't realize how much it's actually controlling you. And I see so many people on different platforms who must spend all their day on that platform, or just constantly being notified. So it's like you said, if that's hack the box, if that's, learning pen testing or coding, or if that's climbing like me, or photography or whatever it is, it doesn't matter. Just take yourself away from things that are controlling you, your notifications, your constant look at this, look at this, look at this, it's coming through on your phone, and go and do something that's just for you, that you're controlling, that you're kind of deciding how much time you spend in it, and nothing else is telling you where your attention should be. That is, I think, how you get more bandwidth to live your life.
I think the other thing is we're so accustomed to the first person to find something, and that, so it's the FOMO, fear of missing out,
Yeah.
that people are always wanting to be at the latest news, and that it's like it, I mean, I get it. It is important to stay up to date, but sometimes, you know what, who cares? You miss the latest hack or whatever. There's always
I
going to be
once
another
landed,
one.
can I just say, I once landed from a flight and I turned my phone on and there was like 36 signal notifications. And my first thing I thought was, oh my God, well, who's been hacked? Someone really bad has been hacked. This is going to be awful. And it was just Dan Card sharing tweets.
I don't know where he gets the energy. Oh
It
my
was like
god.
36 messages. I was like panicking that someone had been hacked, and it was just Dan being like, have you seen this? Have you seen this? So much
Oh,
energy for
Dad.
someone who doesn't drink coffee. It's unbelievable.
I can't. Have children. There. Have children. That will get you away, because it's like the end of the day. I'm done. Sit in front of the TV. Yeah.
I'm not sure
Social
that's
media.
necessarily a good reason to have children. I needed a break from social media, so I had the child.
Yeah. Not just one. Have a few of them.
Have a
Yeah.
few of them for maximum break.
No, but it does help put perspective in that. And I'm finding myself like I'm still interested in social media, but nowhere near where I used to be.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's going to be different for everyone. And you, you ultimately got to find things that work for you and take a break, but also realize that things like you don't have to always be there. There will be something else that comes along. Letting others people, like if you're in a team, letting other people take control sometimes, and not you always being the one to deal with things. Say no. This is something that I always was a big flaw of myself. Is I would say yes to everything, and then you overburden yourself.
Yeah.
So different things like that can help. And you know what, if some also realizing sometimes stuff happens and just accepting it, and it's not ideal, but you know what, life goes on, the world's not going to end, and often it's not going to be as bad as you think it will be
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
if you don't do the wrong things.
Yeah.
um so
I agree. And
yeah.
I think the other thing that I've learned the hard way is that Lisa's time, Lisa's relaxing time, whether that's climbing or training or playing PlayStation or whatever, having my ass kicked in Civilization, which is always what happens. No matter, no matter what I do, we always lose. Anyway, whatever it is, that has value. And in my mind, I was thinking before, like, oh, this is just filler. Like, I've got nothing else to do, so now I can do this. And now I think, well, actually, no, I'm not going to do that podcast, or no, I'm not going to join that thing, because actually this evening is about me and I'm just going to enjoy a movie or play PlayStation. And that has value. And that value may not be exceeded by the thing that I'm going to say no to. And I think that's what you have to kind of appreciate as well, because we don't tend to do that. We feel like we
Yep.
need to constantly be on the go, but actually those things definitely have a fixed value that you need to assign to them.
And I think another thing is the likes and follows, right? um
All that
there's
matters in the
some
world, apparently.
some people, it's their choice, if that's what they want to go for, but I think they don't actually quite realize, like, outside of social media, those don't really matter too much.
No.
Like, you're not going to go, oh, I've got 40,000 followers in a job, oh, you're hired.
Yeah.
So it's great on social media. It is great for sharing ideas and content and that. Like, so unless you like really sharing content and out there and have a lot of stuff that can maybe help, but outside of that, it's probably not going to really make too much of a difference outside of social media. Um, it will have a little bit of an impact, but the amount of effort and time you got to put into that, it's just, it's really not worth the amount of utter BS that you got to often deal with sometimes. Because also, the more people that follow you and that, the more, let's just say, difficult things can happen. And yeah, it so it's not always what it seems. So just people being aware of that, and that's
And
also
just being
keeping down.
obsessed with brand as well. I have so many friends who say, oh, it's really good for my brand. And then what? What you haven't done is gone, okay, let's imagine I have this amazing brand and I have 100,000 Twitter followers. What happens then in your mind? What happens then? What does it lead to? Does it lead to money? Do you think that's going to give you money? Do you think it's going to give you job opportunities? Do you think it's going to give you a better rate on your mortgage? I don't know. What do you think happens when you reach 100,000 followers? Because you become so obsessed. People become so obsessed with this brand and like having all this followers. And it's like, but then what do you think happens? Because honestly, I mean, I don't have loads of followers. I have an okay amount, but you know, I'm not in anywhere near 100,000.
Mm,
But for me, honestly, I can honestly say I really had nothing tangible that's come directly just from that. Other things that I've done, sure, blog articles I've written and stuff, fine, yes. But from the followers, lots of bants, and it's great fun on Twitter and we have a good laugh, don't get me wrong, but like, how
yeah.
important is that really? Like, am I going to destroy my entire life for shit posting? Yes, I probably am.
That's the ironic thing is shit posts get
I just
way
see
more
someone
likes
said
than.
it will give it's short-sighted, Lisa. It will give you a shit ton of money the moment you start pumping your new crypto. Hacks coin is happening. Get on it.
Yep, yep, definitely Hacks coin. Just gotta figure out a logo. Apparently, I heard we have an awesome artist that can
We
help out with that.
the artwork was beautiful for this show.
Super. Artists are still deciding to remain anonymous. but, but yeah, it's certainly a valid point. Like, I've not seen much where I get the value is the interactions,
Yeah.
the gaining,
Friendships.
yeah, the networking, sharing ideas, and that far more than any sort of tweet that I post and gets. I don't even think I've had a tweet that's made over 200 likes. I think, if that. Yeah. So it's just fun. I've things that I look back. If I look back now, and the things that I'm really happy with is helping someone land their first gig in cybersecurity, helping someone like move into a full security role, after mentoring them, and that's where I get a lot of the kicks from.
Yeah.
Or doing streaming videos like this, where we can talk about things and hopefully help someone. That's far
Yeah.
more important to me than any
Yeah.
sorts of likes or follows.
Agreed. And on that
Now,
note, I mean, I do a lot of pro bono work for charities, especially at the moment, charities who help victims of domestic violence. So if anybody who watches this wants to dedicate some time or some effort, there's lots of really complicated challenges that they face that are really interesting, actually, from a tech perspective on how we solve it. Regarding, secret communications and encryption and other things. So if people are interested in getting involved and want to spend the time doing something techie and interesting, but also that helps, just reach out to me, and that we always need more people to help.
oh, that's really cool. Yeah, that's definitely a worthwhile cause. And yeah, I imagine rewarding, well, rewarding knowing that you're making a significant difference.
Well, at least we're trying. And I think that's the key thing, for everything, like, at least we're all trying.
Exactly. It's what I enjoy is helping others out and trying to help as much as possible.
I mean, I do
Yeah.
enjoy posting as well. Don't get me wrong. I do like the odd GIF or occasionally the odd inflammatory tweet, which if you follow me, you kind of already know that.
What, like pineapple on pizza?
All right, we didn't have to go there, to be honest. Someone chose violence tonight, but whatever.
Yeah. It's good. Well, what was you probably get upset with banana on pizza, right?
But no, there's not. No one does banana on a pizza
Banana, bacon, and yeah, on the pizza.
with cheese.
Yeah.
Like there's cheese. No. What is wrong with people? I just think this is a cry for help, to be honest. I think this is something that's like genuinely sad for people that they do this. I saw chicken tikka on pizza the other day in Iceland. They were selling that, and there was a big advert outside the store for it. And I honestly thought I was just being trolled by Iceland for a moment. Deep fried Mars bars? No, there's not. People are just trolling me on this now.
That actually is. Edinburgh
Have to Google
Royal Mail.
Deep fried Mars bars. If I Google this and this isn't real, I'm just going to log off your
Royal Mail. There's a chippy. I think they're still running. They're renowned for that. There's deep fried ice cream.
Oh my god, there is.
Well, there's deep fried pizza.
What?
And deep fried toast. Don't ever have deep fried toast. It is absolutely disgusting. Sorry if there's anyone on the stream that's watching this and likes it. I just no.
No. What has happened to the world? That's just awful. Well, you learn something new every day, I suppose.
Yep. Deep fry everything.
No,
good,
deep fry
good,
almost
good for
nothing.
The calories.
No.
Good for the heart rate.
It's not good for any of those things. No.
But yeah, I've enjoyed
Do you have any
this.
questions? Anybody got any questions before we sign out, or just trolling comments at me? No, I'm not going to try deep fried Mars bars. I've just seen that comment. That's not happening. If you think that's happening, you clearly don't know me at all.
Deep fried toast, then.
No, I'm not trying deep fried anything. I don't even go to Burger King or McDonald's. Do you think if I'm not going to Burger King and McDonald's, I'm going to eat deep fried Mars bars? No.
One day we'll get you. We'll get you to.
I will do a bet. I will do a bet. I'll think of a bet, and if I lose it, I'll eat a deep fried Mars bar and a slice of pineapple on pizza. Okay.
There we go. So challenge. So people,
Yeah.
if you can think up of a bet that's gonna
Yeah.
eat Lisa eat a pineapple on pizza and a deep fried Mars bar as a dessert.
We'll do a whole live stream on it.
What's it for the other person? What does the other person have to do?
I don't know. Oh, go ice climbing. That would be hilarious. You have to go ice climbing.
I'm out. I'm out.
Oh, well, but I'll be able to eat pineapple on pizza, but you can't go ice climbing.
No, I have serious fears of heights. Like, Uber.
And I have serious amounts of taste. So we're both in the same boat.
I'll eat haggis. There we go.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. That's a fair trade. That's a fair trade.
Oof. No.
Someone just said, I'll eat pineapple pizza, and if I lose, you die.
Wow. That got pretty dark.
That's InfoSec for you. It goes dark really fast.
Culinary does the last two, death.
It's a great community. We love you all.
Yeah. But yeah, haggis and pineapple on pizza.
Yeah, done. That's what we'll bring to the next one.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
What did I get myself into?
What did you get yourself into? This is like my hill to die on, my one hill to die on that I now have to lose.
Oh, geez. But yeah, no, it's been great.
It's been really fun.
Try keep this fairly regular.
Yeah.
But yeah, if anyone's got any thoughts and comments, let us know. This will be recorded. Oh, I hope it is. I said it is. I'm sure it is because it goes through Twitch, so I think that records it. And yeah, we'll make it available. Thanks to everyone who joined, especially MSAC, Sulp, and let me get the other one, Neil, as well, who have added commentary throughout. To the person who offered promotions, you can get lost because I'm not interested in your spam. But yeah, thanks for everybody who joined, and
maybe we'll get
have a great
SBF
one.
on next time, and we can just
Yeah,
chat with him.
yeah,
He likes to chat, so maybe we can. You never know.
yeah, definitely. Ask him what he thinks about his
Fraud.
his witnesses. Yeah. Ask him about what is risk and compliance. Like, do you worry about that?
Yeah.
Apparently you don't.
He'd look
Just
off
ignore it.
fast.
But yeah.
Cool. Thank you everyone for joining. I really enjoyed it. I had fun, and we'll do it more regularly for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Catch you all later.
Bye.
Bye.